Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Underworld, Rise of the Lycans, starring Michael Sheen, Bill Nighy, Rona Mitra, Stephen McIntosh, and Kevin Grievous, and directed by, let me see if I'm saying this name right, Patrick Tatopoulos? Sorry about that. So, I did see this in movie theaters, and what do I remember about this one? Absolutely nothing. So let's get into the movie, shall we? Lucian, returned by Michael Sheen, been a slave for the vampires since he was a baby and is treated like an animal, where the vampires, led by Victor, returned by Bill Nighy, names these half men, half werewolves called Lycans, which was explained in the first movie, but this is the one. This is one of those annoying prequels where they have to check a box off from the previous movies, where the Lycans run on 4 feet. I swear to God, they look so fake. And I can't help but bust up laughing by how bad they look. Then we meet Sonya, or Sandra, whatever the hell her name is, played by Rona Mitra, who's the reason the war has ever begun between Lycans and vampires. And the point of all this shit is to check off the names and everything off the list. And it created a big fucking problem for me when it comes to prequels. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really like Sanja, as she felt like the damsel in distress despite the actress trying to not play one. I just wasn't buying her and her character arc from the get-go. Like the other two movies, this one didn't feel lightened up. So there were times it was kind of hard to know what the fuck was going on screen. The acting in this thing is just awful, as it was in the first two movies. But I'll give Rona Mitra this. She sort of looks like Kate Beckinsale, but in the most doubts kind of way. But again, the acting in this was just horrible. Lucian is worried about the vampires getting killed by Lycans, as there's too many of them, so he goes on and to save others vampires as he unleashes himself as a Lycan. And Reyes, returned by Kevin Grievous from the first film, is back into the series. And another problem, Lucian helps save Sandra's life and Victor just punishes him anyways. This once again doesn't make any goddamn sense. I feel like Victor is full of shit as a character, and the vampires whip Lucian, which doesn't make me fear Victor, as it's making me hating him than I did in the first film. Lucian is now imprisoned with Reyes, and the movie is falling apart in so many ways, but almost there with the Hills of Ice series. After seeing the vampires seeing they're like animals, Lucian makes a speech that they're not animals and they have a chance to be either the vampire slaves or they could be Lycans, which is kind of a laughable speech in my opinion. But hell, this whole movie is laughable. The vampires takes the Lycans to be slaves as they break out of the vampire cages and escape, but not all of them will escape, but very little do while it begins to be daylight. And we do get a little light in this movie, but it's not much, nor is it saying much. Victor is pissed that Lucian gets out of there, and Lucian plans on fighting back with the vampires. Victor finds Sanja was helping Lucian and was dating him, and he's even more pissed about being betrayed and has a plan to stop the Lycans as the Lycans prepare for battle. And he's got Sanja trapped into his up on chains, and I'm waiting for why she was the reason to start the war. Maybe it was because she was in love with a Lycan. Lucian breaks Sanja out of chains, and they against the vampires with some bad-looking wire foo, and Victor confronts Sanja and fights until she reveals a baby is coming, and Victor gets Lucian and Sanja caged up, which is bullshit. Which is a bullshit way to tell the audience the war began this way. The vampires torture Lucian and Sanja as Sanja gets the daylight death, which I guess explains how the war began, which did feel not that great that we got it this way in the movie. Tells us in a prequel, Lucian goes on a rampage against the vampires versus Lycans with some cheap cartoony effects that was so laughable. Lucian and Victor have a bad looking fight, with Lucian as the winner, and Victor will be resurrected in the first film as we see the image of Kate Beckinsale on a balcony in the beginning of the first film. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 3.1 out of 10. This movie is very dark and the dialogue is corny and the acting was very bad, but sort of an improvement of the first two predecessors. The whole prequel thing is getting on my nerves now at this point, as it is annoying in general. The series so far is turning into Saw, Child's Play, and The Hills of Eyes, whereas I don't like any of those movies except for Bride of Chucky, but I'm hopeful for the next two will be better than these first three. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with Underworld Awakening. And until next time, it's time to shoot some Lycans.